Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab determinator on apps, the video number 45. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We are working now on a new process that is amazing uh, through using the MDT. This process is called zero touch installation. We have discussed in the previous video before that there is a lot of operations that you can do using the MDT. You can make a capture or deployment process through a process called light touch installation, okay, or through another process called zero touch installation, or through a third process called zero called user driven installation. So these are three kinds of installation. Some of them are automated or fully automated, like zero touch installation. Some of them are semi-automated, like light touch installation, and some are not automated at all, like the user-driven installation. So we have seen the light touch installation during our lab when we were capturing the different operating system images. We have seen when we capture Windows 10 and all of its programs, we were using the light touch installation. Okay, the same for the normal deployment. We have already done a deployment using the light touch installation. So the previous video we were concerning, or we were focusing on how to make a deployment using the zero touch installation. And to do that, we have to configure an MDT database. Okay, this database is on SQL Express. This database will act like an answer file. It will provide all of the data needed for the deployment process, and this data will help us to automate the process as a whole. Okay, so for example, when the PC is powered on, it will communicate with the WS, and then it will communicate with the MDT, and then it will go directly to the MDT database. This database contains the network MAC address for the PC. Through it, this is the main identifier for the PC. So the MDT database will know the PC through its MAC address. And this is very, very critical. We can, through the MAC address, tell the database that we need this PC to take a certain name, to take some or to install some applications on it, to be a certain role. For example, maybe this will be a server or this will be a workstation. So this is the beauty of the MDT database. It is provided, or it is acting like an answer file. So we need to do how to do this process. This is very, very simple process, even though it is a little bit complex, but we will try to break it to simple parts. So the previous video we have seen that we need, before creating the MDT database, we need to activate some SQL services that are very important, so they will make the clients be able to communicate with the MDT database. So we have done this in the previous video. Today we will continue. We have already activated these services. Now we need to create the MDT database. So let's go and see how we can do that. Just a moment, guys. We need to close this one. So I need to close the Telegram. Okay. And again, we are here in the process, or we will make a zero touch installation for the Windows Server 2022 standard image. We have taken an image for the Windows Server 2022 with all of its programs, the same as we have done with Windows 10 and Windows 10 LTSC. We have taken images from them with some programs like PowerShell and CMTrace. We have done this before. So we need to automate this process, fully automate this process. So let's go and see how we can do that. First, here is the section of the database. First of all, we need to right click. Okay, the first thing, we need to right click and create a new database. This is very, very simple process. Now the first thing, we will be asked to provide the SQL server name. Okay, so the name of our server that our SQL database are installed on, or is installed on. So it's sknhqmf01. Okay, the instant will be SQL Express. We have discussed before what is an instant or SQL instant and the difference between it and the SQL database. Okay, so this is the instant SQL Express. You can leave it blank. This is an optional entry. The same for the port. And the method to connect to the database is name pipelines. Then we need to create a new database. We will name it MDT DB. MDT Microsoft Deployment Toolkit D Deployment DB database. So now we can continue. This is the name of the database, and the next here is a very important thing. Here is telling us to provide a shared folder that will act as the SQL share. What is the SQL share folder? In order to make a SQL server connection using Windows integrated security from Windows PE, we can say to make a SQL connection. So the client to make a SQL so the client to connect to the SQL database, he need to make a SQL server connection. Okay, to do that we need to have a folder shared between the client and between the SQL server. Okay, so this is here what is saying. It may be necessary to first establish a secure connection to the server. This is done by mapping a driver to the server. So the main function of this uh, uh, mapped or shared folder is to secure the connection between the client and the SQL server. Okay, he's saying here that you need to connect to the SQL server. This will be done using the name pipelines or TCP/IP protocol. We will connect to the SQL server. To secure the connection, we need to make a mapped folder between the client and the SQL server. We can use the deployment share folder that we are currently using. Okay, we can make it as our SQL share folder. Okay, so this is basically what is the main function of the SQL share. Okay, he's saying specify the name of an existing share on the server that can be used to make this mapped connection. We can use the deployment share. We have already something called deployment share folder, and it is shared already and it is hidden. We have a captured share folder, but we need to do that, or the MDT database will be through or in the MDT deployment share folder. Okay, so we need to provide a mapped drive. Okay, we can use the SQL share map drive or any other one. Okay, but I prefer to do that, or I prefer to use the same deployment share folder. Okay, so this is this is one thing. We can go to the AI tools and ask this question: why we need the SQL share on the MDT database? This can be asked to Copilot AI, because this is the one accurate answer I have got. All of the other AIs didn't give me a straight answer, or it is not a correct answer. Okay, this is another important thing I forgot to say. Here is saying that the SQL share in the MDT database is essentially a network share that allows the MDT deployment process to access the SQL server. So this is another thing. So it helps you to access the SQL database, but I think uh, the protocol will allow you to access the SQL database. Okay, the TCP/IP protocol or name pipelines. Anyway, you have provided a link from Microsoft saying that or confirming that say or that text what is written now. So when you create a deployment database in the deployment workbench, you specify the SQL share. This is a share used by the MDT process to connect to the SQL server and access the deployment database. Okay, so it is accessing the SQL server and access the deployment database, the two. It will access the SQL server or help us to connect to the SQL server and then access the deployment database. So it will do two things, okay? Connect to the SQL server and access the MDT database. And I think in addition to the protocols, name pipelines and TCP/IP, they will help you to connect to the SQL Server as well. Anyway, the SQL share is important because it enables the MDT process to retrieve the pre-stage information stored in the database. Pre-stage information like the computer name, the IP address, applications to be deployed, and other settings for the machines. This information is crucial for the deployment process to correctly configure the machines. Remember to configure your firewall to allow traffic to the SQL Server browser service and open ports like 1433 TCP and 1434 UDP for inbound traffic. This ensures the MDT deployment process can successfully connect to the SQL Server via the SQL share. So, a very important note, we have already disabled the firewall on the MDT server. I have done this in the beginning of the lab. I have disabled all of the Windows firewalls on all of our servers. So if you did not disable the Windows firewall, there will be some problems during the deployment. So make sure if if you need the deployment to be successful to disable the Windows firewall or to make rules to allow these ports. Okay, and by the way, Daniel Brother Barbarius have some ports also in his documentation that you can use to allow in the Windows firewall. Okay, they are related to the SQL server traffic. Okay, anyway, so this is basically what we need, why we need a SQL share. Okay, we need a SQL share to connect to the SQL server and SQL database and to secure the connection between the SQL server and the clients. Okay, so this is one good thing to know. Then let's continue and see the other things. So here we'll put the deployment share. This is the deployment share folder. We have already done this before. Next. Okay, and then tell him next. You can do everything through the graphical interface and then through the script from the view script. Okay, now we have a couple of things here. We have, if we go a little bit further, we can go like this one, sorry. Let me give you a little bit of something here. Okay, what are these? On the database, there is computers, there is roles, there is locations, there is make and model. What are these? Why do we need them? Okay, in very, very simple terms, in the database, you can put data related to the computer in this section in database. This will give the computer some specific data. For example, here in the computer, we will insert the MAC address of the network card for the machine, and beside it, we will enter or we will insert other data like the name of the PC we need to give it to and the applications we need to install on this computer. If you need to join the domain, all of this will be done in computers. Okay, so this is data related to the computer itself. As for the roles, this is related to the role of the PC, if it is a server or a workstation. So for example, we can insert here an entry saying that the MAC address of this PC, if you identify it, then this MAC address for this PC, it will act as a server. So the MAC address for this workstation or for this PC will act as a server or act as a workstation. Locations, if you see the MAC address of a certain PC, then this is from a certain location. For example, if I am working in different locations, for example, if you see a MAC address from the United States, then you should install certain applications from this PC coming from the United States. If it is from China, for example, then we need to install other applications. So this is related to location data, this is related to roles data, this is related to computers data. As for make and model, for example, you need some models to take certain applications and others not. For example, you need to have some HP models to have some applications on it, and some Dell PCs to have certain applications installed on it. So these are all tools that will help you to customize your deployment or to automate your zero-touch installation in different ways through the computer's data or the roles data or the locations data or the make and model. Let's see what does Copilot say about this these things. He said the database subfolder under the advanced configuration MDT share contains several folders, each serving a specific purpose. computers, the folder is used to store computer-specific entries. You can add a new computer entry and assign a description and computer name. The computer's MAC address or UID can be used as an identifier. This is what I'm talking about. So you can identify the PC by the MAC address or the serial of the motherboard or through the universal unique identifier. Okay, this can be used as an identifier for the PC or server, and after you identify it, then you can give it some specific configuration like the name of the PC, the applications that will be installed, something like that. During the deployment, the device will be queried, and if it finds the make model in your database, it will apply whatever settings you have specified. Anyway, so this is very, very good thing to automate your deployment. Okay, roles in MDT are used to group settings together. You can create a role entry in database and then assign that role to a computer. For example, you can create a role named standard PC and associate it to one or more computer sentries. So for example, you can make some setting and say this is for standard PCs, and another group of settings, and you can say this is for standard server, and another or third role or third specific configuration. This you can do, for example, for IT PC. So these are the roles. What does this machine act as? What is its role if it is a PC or a server, for example. This depends upon the role of the machine. Okay, so this is one thing also. The location. The folder is used to apply different customization for different groups or computer based on the computer physical location. As I said before, you can apply some specific configuration for PCs coming from the United States or some coming from China. This depends upon the gateway, and he can know the gateway. You can identify the gateway. If the PC coming from a certain gateway, then that means it is coming from a certain location. Anyway, so this is, you can know the details, but this is very, very brief description. Make and model. This folder is used to apply different customizations for different groups of computer based on the computer hardware such as the manufacturer and model. We have said this before, the HP model and the Dell model. Okay, so this is very, very good explanation. Remember, MD database is designed to pre-stage information or to store information on your Windows 10 deployment in a Microsoft SQL database, or SQL X Plus, by the way, rather than include the information in a text file, custom setting.ini. Okay, the custom setting is one of the ways to automate the process of the installation. We have used it before, but the MDT database is more, you can do more with the MDT database. Okay, both custom setting.ini and the MDT database will act like answer files for this unattended installation. You can use this process to add the client machines you want to deploy, specify other computer names and IP addresses, indicate applications to be deployed, and determine many more settings for the machines. The one good thing about Copilot that it gives you the link that it gets this information from, so you can revise it and see it. This is not in Google Bard AI, even though there is something to verify the answer. This is one thing, and it verifies the answer and gives you or it will put the correct answer or the verified answer with green and the not verified answer with brown. So the verified answer with green will give you the link that Google Bard get his information from. As for the brown marked text, this means that it is not verified, and this can imply that it was created by the AI itself. This can be correct or not. You need to take the answer and verify it through another AI tool like the Copilot. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue and see, or continue with our configuration. Here we need to something called configure database rules. These are the rules. You can see here computer options, location options, make and model options, role options. We have discussed every one of these settings. So after creating a database, we need to inform the MDT database that we will use some certain computer options and some certain location options and some certain make and model options and some role options. We will use it through the MDT database to automate our zero touch installation. So this is like informing it to use these options or to make these options available through the database. Okay, we can go again and ask the AI, there is another thing here. If we go and ask this question, why does the new database wizard or the MDT, okay, this is not the answer, or this is not the correct question. What are the configure DB rules on MDT database? Explain in simple terms. Let's go and copy this and uh, say that to again to Copilot. Okay, here let's see what are this is saying that the configure database roles in MDT database is a feature that allows you to specify which settings should be retrieved from the database and what should be retrieved from the configuration file. Okay, this is basically what we're talking about. Okay, the rules. You tell him right click on database and choose configure database rules. These options presented in the wizard, the next presented in the next wizard tell MDT which things to look up in the database and which things to look up in the configuration file. Okay, so this is basically what it is. Okay, in simplest form, the rules engine is the custom setting.ini text file. So it's saying that most of the things in the custom setting.ini are presented in this database or in the section of database in a graphical interface. And this is correct. If you go and see the custom setting.ini, you will see most of the variables or most of the configuration items are presented or are available in the database section in the MDT. Okay, we'll see that. So this is the simplest form. The rules engine is the custom setting.ini text files. When using MDT, you can assign setting in 3 distinct ways. You can pre-state the information before deployment. You can prompt the user or technician for information. You can have MDT generate the setting automatically. Anyway, so this is the rules. It's powerful. Most of the setting used for operating system anyway. So we can see that the rules that will help you to automate the deployment. Okay, and these rules will help you or will help the MDT database to see what setting it should see as an identifier and what setting it should apply. For example, if I know I can make my identifier like the MAC address of the network card, and then the setting that will be applied is the application that will be installed, the name of the PC. Okay, so this is what we mean by the rules. Okay, so let's continue. So now what we need to do, we need to begin the process. We need to create a virtual machine and puts its network card MAC address in database and tell it to put certain configuration on this virtual machine. Okay, first of all, let me show you all what we are doing now here. As for the rules, remember, after creating the MDT database, the custom setting.ini will be changed. It will reflect what happened after. For example, if we create the database, it will be reflected in the custom setting.ini. You will see additional sections appearing in the custom setting.ini related to the database. So in the custom setting.ini, you can tell the custom setting.ini to go to the database and see certain configurations. So this is very, very crucial. Okay. So if this is not reflected in the custom setting.ini, the deployment process will not know what to do. You need to guide the custom setting.ini to go to the database and check certain sections in it. For example, to check the computer section or the role section or the make and model section or the location section. So Here is some setting I have already saved before from a previous installation, so I need to copy it and put it in my current custom setting.ini for the deployment. So we will see that if we open the custom setting.ini and tell him edit, we will see that there is here the priority. Remember the priority before, or how this text will be processed. First of all, before configuring database, the first thing it will need to go is to see, or the referring thing that will be processed in the custom setting.ini is the task ID section, to go to see what are the task ID. If there is this task ID, then it will do certain things. Then if this is the task ID, it will do another different thing, okay? And then after finishing the task ID, it will go to the default section, it will begin applying it, okay? So this was the priority. After creating the database, this is changed. You will see that the task ID and default are at the last thing in the priority. So C settings, C packages, C apps, C admin, C roles, locations. Okay, as we can see, this is the role section in the database, the location section in the database. So the priority is to look, to go and see these sections in the database. And after that, it can go to the task ID and the default section. Okay, so this is very, very important. We need to focus on it. If we go and check the last, just wait for a moment. Here we can see these are the sections that will be added to your custom setting.ini after creating the database. You will see something like SQL Server. We have already defined this through the wizard. The instant will be provided, okay, also because we have provided it in the wizard. There is a couple of things here we need to add it manually. For example, we need to add the DB ID and the DB password. These are the username and the password that will be used to access the MDT database. So we need to provide it in the custom setting.ini. Okay, and uh, this is the instant. This is the database user and password, and the database name, it is MDTDB, so this need to be changed. As for netlib, I don't know what is this, but we need to provide this info in a correct way. Remember, when we're installing the SQL Express, we have already created this user and give it a password, so we need to change our custom setting and add this info. And this is the SQL share we have already provided before, and this is the table. What is the section? It is the computer setting, okay? This is the computer setting, or it will see the computer setting. It will see the UID, asset tag, serial number, and MAC address. So this is basically uh, it is telling the custom setting.ini which databases, or what is the section in the database it should access, if it is the computer or the roles or the locations or the make and model, and how to access it. You need to provide a username and the password. You need to provide the SQL server name. You need to provide the instance. You need to provide the MDT database name. All of this should be provided. So what I'm doing here, I will need to change this to MDT DB and then copy all of this content and replace it with my current deployment share custom setting.ini. Okay, so let's go and see that. As you can see here, this is for the roles section. Okay, we need to change the database name. So I need to go to my current custom setting.ini for the deployment. If we go now and right click and properties, if you go to rules, here is my current section. We can see here, if we go further, okay, this is added recently after I created the database. We can see that they have something missing. There is no username and password. All of these data are correct, but we need to add the section of the SQL username and the password. Okay, so these are all correct. We need to just add the username and the password that will be used to access the database. Okay, I think this can be done using your Active Directory user account. It has privileges on or the SQL Server admin Active Directory security group has access to the SQL Server database. But anyway, I have tried this and it didn't work as I expected. So I am working with the SQL or the local SQL Server username, which is SA. Okay, so we will add it here. So we need to put some info or some additional info. So we'll copy the database and then change it in my current text file and copy the content of this text file and replace it with this one. Okay, so we'll copy that one, copy, and go there. We go to the replace icon. Okay, not find, it is replace. So we'll put, we need first to go and change the database here. This is not correct, or we can go down. This is, can go further. This is not the correct name. It's not MDT deploy. Okay, we need to change that in the text file. So we will tell it to okay, let me ask the AI a certain question. What is the netlib equal something? Let me ask Copilot. What is netlib section in the MDT SQL database? Let's see what this the answer. Okay, so here this section it is telling the protocol that will be used to connect to database. We can see this is very good info. Here it's saying that it is the parameter that specific the network library to use when connecting to the SQL server. So this tell it to use the name pipeline library. So it's saying in this context, the netlib parameter is typically set to NB. This is the one that we are using. DB and MPT and MP NTW. Okay, we can see that here. Okay, this MB and NTTW, this is the same. So what does this means? This means that it stands for name pipelines network library. So N network or named pipe, I think this is okay. It's a protocol developed by Microsoft to allow processes on the same computer or different computers to communicate with each other. We have seen this or we have discussed this before. Although it's a legacy protocol, name pipelines have proven to work well when connecting from Windows installation environments WinPE to the SQL Server database. This is why it is recommended to enable name pipelines when configuring the SQL Express. So this will be used when we use our boot image. So through the boot image, which is it is named as Windows pre-installation environment, this is our boot image, it will use this protocol to connect to the SQL Server. So this is very important thing to notice here. Okay, so this is the protocol that will be used. So if there is any changes in this section, then this means it will use a different protocol. Okay, for example, I think maybe if you need to change it for TCP IP, for example, this will be a different value. Let's ask Copilot, what if I need, okay, I didn't change the default setting before, but what if I need to make TCP-IP protocol instead of named pipeline? Let's see what will be the answer. Okay, this while MDT prefers name pipelines access for SQL, you can still configure it to use TCP. However, you might need to adjust your firewall setting to allow traffic to SQL server via TCP IP. Okay, so if I need to do that, I need to go to the SQL Server Configuration Manager. Okay, we have this already. Make sure that the shared memory pipelines are enabled. We have done this in the beginning of the lab or in the previous video. If any of these are disabled, enable and restart SQL Server. We have done this, okay, the previous video. Modify the connection string. In your MDT setting, modify the connection string to force USSP. For example, you can change the data connection parameter. Okay, how to do that? Okay. Uh, okay, I think here this is okay. This is the way to do that. The connection. I think this will be done through the SQL. Through the SQL manager or the just wait for a moment. Let's see what this. So let me close all of these. Close this one and do like that. Okay. Let's go and see. Okay, how we can do that. Okay, let's see the other one like that or do like this. So anyway, there is a way to do that, but I don't know actually if it will be done from in your MDT setting. Modify the connection string to force the use of TCP/IP. For example, you can change the data source parameter your connection string to data source equal TCP/IP host name, etc. Anyway, uh, you can query the AI and see how we can do this, but you can leave it as it is. Okay, but I think let me see. Please give me steps how to do that. Let's see if it will give it a straight answer. Okay, I have done this. Restart the service already. Yes, we have done this. All of these three steps, we have already done it. Modify the connection. Okay, this is in the custom setting.ini. Okay. Let me see. Okay, where is the section? If we go further, let's go and see where the section 2 modify that. If you go to it's found in the custom setting.ini, you need to modify the connection use string to use TCP/IP. You can do this by changing the data source parameter in your connection to data source equal TCP/IP host name. I think this will be for example, here it will be data source equal my server initial catalog so and so true. You would change it to data source so and so integrated. Okay, integrated initial catalog my database, and you can change it to data source TCP IP my server so and so. So data source, I think this he means, or data source, I think this is related to the database. I think here we need to put it with this parameter. We need to modify this parameter, I think. Okay, because this is the only database source we have. Okay, adjust. Let's see. Give me the MDT section that need to be modified. Yeah, I needed to make it more clear answer just to make sure how we can do that. It's found custom setting. Okay, let's here is giving us more setting. Okay, this is a good one. Okay, so now this is what I was searching for. Here he give us a different answer. This is the one that I'm talking about. Here this is the section that need to be modified, the one for the database, or the NTLIB. This is the one that need to be changed. You need to change it from NT or name pipelines to DBMSSOCN. So you would need to modify the NTLab and data source parameters under DB setting to use this one. An example, DMBSSOCN is used for net parameter to specify the use of TCP/IP. So this is the answer. Okay, the server name is fixed with TCP/IP to force. Okay, so we need to change the NTB section, and we will add or the section of the server. Let's see here, the section of the SQL server need to be modified. Okay, we need to give it this TCP/IP / my server. So he's saying that we need to change it, and the server parameter is prefixed with TCP/IP to force the use of TCP/IP. Remember to replace my server with the actual host name of your SQL server. Also, these steps assume that you are using Windows Authentication integrated authentication to connect to SQL Server. If you are using SQL authentication, you need to include the username and the password. So we have already included the username and the password of the SQL, okay? Because we are using SQL authentication, not Windows authentication. So this is very, very good answer, okay? Now we can modify it to use the TCP/IP instead of the name pipelines if you prefer a more secure protocol. Let's ask another question. Who is more secure? Is more secure name pipelines or TCP/IP? Because this will help us to, or this is why, because he say something that the it is a legacy, or it is an old uh, old old protocol. Okay, so let's see what is the correct answer here. Okay, in general, both named pipelines and TCP can be secure when configured properly and used in the right context. It is recommended to follow the best security practices, such as use strong authentication and encryption regardless of the protocol which you choose. Okay, so uh, both are uh, both are secure. Okay, so what he mean by legacy? What you mean? I could give this. What you mean by named pipelines is a legacy? I think here I thought legacy, it is an old legacy protocol. Because you said this word. When we say Name is a legacy, we mean it is an older technology that has been around for big time. Okay, let's still widely. Okay, so he's saying this is an old. So that's this I comprehend it right. Okay, so or I have uh, seen it is I have already the wrong the right assumption. So this is means it is an old technology that has been around for a long time. Name pipelines were developed by Microsoft for inter-process communication. They provide a web process running okay. Name pipelines support for duplex, so and so and so. They are more. However, despite being an older technology, name pipelines are still widely used today because they are reliable and efficient for certain types of communication. So while name pipelines might be considered legacy in this sense that they are an older technology, they are by no means obsolete or outdated. Okay, this is a good one. They continue to be a valuable tool. Okay, so very, very good answer. So let's continue. So here we are changing the database name. Let me see first how much time we have. I think it's 44 minutes. Okay, so we will change the database and replace it. Okay, now we have everything Good. We need to copy the content and replace it. And this netlib, we all know that this is related to the protocol that will be used to connect to the database. It is name pipelines. Okay. So now we will copy all of the content and replace it. Okay, so we'll copy all of it. So again, I will open the text file again and use it. So this is the current setting or the correct setting. We will copy it and then paste it in the MDT. So now we will Control A and replace it. Control V. Then we have everything configured. So we'll tell him apply and OK. We can see here at the end, okay, we can see that task, or we can see in 1 millisecond. If you go further here again, I will show you all what is the sequence, or what is the priority. If we go up and see the priority, let me show you that the last priority is task ID and the default setting. If we go further, here we can see that the task sequence is at the end. All of the settings are related to the database are the priority for the custom setting.ini to look for, and then the task sequence ID, and then the default one. Okay, so this is one thing to note. So now I don't know what I'm doing here. I think I will go and let me wait for a moment. The files as for the rules again, I don't think so. So it's already there. I have already copied it. I have done this before. I don't know why I am repeating myself. Okay, this is just revising the setting maybe. You can see here something called table role admins. Okay, so this is the table in the database that it's going to see. Okay, the parameter is role. Okay, so it's going to the role or it's going to the table of role. Okay, and this is for the role. Okay, so these two are in the role section. Okay, or in the database role section. Okay, so this is good to know which section it's going to see. Okay, you can see task sequence ID and the default. So getting an apply and OK. And then we can begin by creating a virtual machine and taking its network card MAC address and insert it in the computer section. So we need to go and do that. But before that, we need to confirm that we can access the SQL database using the SQL user, which is called SA. First of all, we need to see that the SA user is working. So we go to SQL Server Authentication and use the SA username. So this is to ensure that nothing will be done during the or nothing will go wrong during the deployment. This is the SCA that we stated or that we have written in the custom setting.ini. So we can see that we can access the SQL database using the local SQL username. Now we need to go through or to access the database through the on Windows authentication. We have, if you go to the security section, we will see that we have the SQL admins, okay, in the Active Directory can access or have full access to the SQL databases. Okay, we can. This is the MDT database. If you go to the security, you can go to the logins. Here we can see that this is the SQL admins. They have full access on uh, this database, and Karim Raouf or K Raouf, the domain admin, is a member of this group. So let's see if I can access with my username this database. So these are all to make sure that the usernames and passwords are connecting, or I can connect. So we'll tell him disconnect, and then we will try to connect using my Active Directory credentials. If you go to a database engine, then we will use not SQL Server authentication, we will use Windows authentication, and then connect. So this is basically, we have access to the SQL Server database. This is very critical thing, or very useful thing to know. Okay, so now we can make an update, I think, but before that, first we need to tell him to skip the task sequence. Why? Because we will insert in the database in the computer section the task sequence that will be chosen. So we don't need the custom setting.ini to display the task sequence window. This will be will not be displayed, and the task sequence will be inserted and verified and answered from the database. So we don't need to choose the task sequence. This will be answered automatically by the database of the MDT. Okay, so we need to tell him skip the task sequence. We will see that when we go to the section or when we configure the computer setting. Okay, so let me see a little bit of something here. For example, here we can see that this table is in the computer section. Okay, so this is in the database computer section. Okay, and this is in the table computer section. Okay, so this is the table it will go to. It will go to the computer, and other one it will go to the role. Okay, so this refers to the table it will see, or it will access. And there is, by the way, in the computer there is a lot of settings. Okay, so there in the computer section there is the application section, there is the administrators section. We will see that when we begin configuring the computers. Okay, so what we need to do now, if we open that and go to the task sequence, let me see what I am doing here exactly. So here, if you need to during the deployment process, if you need to have the application window appearing so you can choose from it, you need to insert a blank install applications step and tell him to install multiple applications. This will give you the window of the applications and let you choose from the applications to install, and make sure that you in your custom setting.ini that the skip application section is not set to yes. Okay, so this is another thing we need to focus on. So now we need to go and create a virtual machine. I will stop at this step, minute 1924. So we need to create a virtual machine and take its network card MAC address and insert it in the computer section. So the upcoming video will continue our discussion. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.